neighbor she got back at 9:30, 10:30, something like that, 10:30, I think.
Is the transformer subject?
Yeah,
Transformer.
yeah,
Oh, really?
right
Yeah.
down there at the corner of American Road. It started, there are 2 poles down there, and there's one little patch that didn't look like it was connected to anything. And then beyond that is a pole with a transformer on it. And that evidently sparks came from both those places. And
Do we-
it hit that ground.
do we
and
wait
then
for her?
up the hill she went.
Like gasoline?
She's got 1 minute.
You know, it was,
Okay.
it's a lot of sagebrush and.
Did it burn down that rope course? Or that
The-
hope, that,
The what?
yeah, you had that hope course there, did it burn that down? That poles and
No, no.
it went around that?
I did hear
Mhm. Yeah, no, it didn't even get over there.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it was just, you know where the corrals are? It went up just up the side of the corrals. And burned all the fence, you know, around that one side of the corrals, and then on up the hill, burned all the fences down. But I bet there were,
Federal Power would be responsible.
Time to go?
Yeah, we can,
Okay, can you lead us in the pledge? Can you lead us in the pledge?
you bet, sure will.
Okay. Okay, here we go. I hereby call this meeting to order. Would like to welcome you all and thank you for being here. And the superintendent, Doug, will help us with the pledge.
Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll remind us, one of our board members, but I'm sure she's on her way. You hear a train out there? Is that-
There was a train out there, actually.
Okay, you're not by train. There you go. We'll move on. There are a couple addenda items which were included, and that's an HR report, PCSD 25 roadmap updates, elementary enrollment program and staffing update, and secondary enrollment program and update. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addenda. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda with the addenda.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, that motion is passed. The approval of minutes will be rolled into the September board meeting. And the next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes authorizing the payment of claims, approving the supplemental financial information, and approving the amended human relations activity. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Oh, second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Hearing none opposed, that motion has passed. The next on the agenda is time for public comment for items that are not on the agenda, and seeing no public here, we'll move on. Next is reports. Courtney Fisher will talk to us with her media report, community relations, and others.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I just have a quick media report for you. So on Facebook, we're up to nearly 10,000 followers. We're just shy about 40 individuals to bring that up to 10,000. So really happy with where we're at for that and the ability to get information out to people that way. As you know, there's a Pocatello School District 25 discussion group, and I was finally able to figure out how to follow that page as School District 25, and so we can now officially comment on that page, so it's not going to be connected to, whereas before if I commented it was connected to my personal Facebook page or Shauna's or Tara's. So now we have an official way to respond. Still, my strategy is to direct people to our official sources of communication, but should we need to post there, we can do so officially, so I wanted to make you all aware of that. There is also a new discussion group that emerged from that group. The intent behind this new one is to be an upbeat, positive place. So I'm optimistic about the intent behind the discussion group, and I actually reached out to the moderator of that group last week, had a really great conversation with him, asked him to make sure that he differentiated the page as much as possible so that it was clear that it's not officially associated with School District 25. He was very responsive, changed the name of the group so that it added a little bit more separation. So really thankful and optimistic about where that will go. Haven't figured out, it's really tricky to like another page as an official page, so I'm still working on that one. 2 years later, figured out the first one, so I'm optimistic I'll be able to figure this one out as well. I wanted to point your direction to some changes that we made to the sd25.us, our official website. So the top of the page is still the same, but as you scroll down, I just really wanted to make information that people need as easily accessible as possible. And so we've got the code and really like attractive too. So that it really brings to light the information that people need to know right now. So we've got the COVID-19 update, back to school, district calendar, the policy manual, new student registration, which is always something that people need to know as they move into our district, and the bus and school start end times is another one. So we've really worked together to figure out what is the information that people have a hard time finding historically, and how can we bring that more up front. So if you go to COVID-19 updates, and I'm going to be making some changes to this page as well, but it's just got this is the page that people really, we're really trying to highly encourage our public to visit this page very frequently, because this is the heart and soul of what we're doing right now. So we've got the roadmap link here, we've got the at a glance, and you can see that, we put all the updated dates on there too, so the people will be able to be aware of when that was last updated. And then we've got the frequently asked questions for staff and the community, and those will be updated. You can see this one was updated yesterday. These will both be updated again by either the end of day today or tomorrow sometime. Jump back, and you can go back to school. Right here, we wanted the hybrid schedule really upfront and easy for people to find. And then all the other back to school information that people need, and those links to those important documents are right there. The district calendar, that's another question that we get frequently, just those holiday dates and in-service dates. Policy manual is something people have a hard time finding on our page. And then the bus school start and end times. This is a great document for people to have. They know when they need to be at school and when they'll be released. And then the community FAQs, because those are updated so frequently, I wanted that to be really easy to find as well. So that's just kind of a quick overview. And that's one of my priorities this year, is just making that website really work for us. It is a tool that should be our best communication tool. It's getting better and better with all the improvements that we're making, but there's still a lot of work to be done in that realm. As far as media coverage, our back to school media coverage has been really responsive. We've had coverage in ISJ and East Idaho News. I was on the radio 3 weeks ago, and then I just went on KZBQ and Core 104 again this morning. They invited me back next week, so I'm trying to arrange, got a tentative time for 7 a.m. on Monday. So I'll be back on the radio welcoming, early, but just in time for hopefully parents transporting their learners back to school on Monday, August 24th. So I'll let you know about that.
You were also at the local issues.
Yes, and we also presented last week, Dr. Howell and Tanya Wilkes and Sue Pettit and I went to local issues for the chamber and presented about what our opening plans were.
Yep, I think the people there were impressed.
They're always a very responsive and receptive audience to us, and I think some of our best advocates.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any questions before I head into the next topic?
Nope.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
The elementary kids won't have an early release this year? Is that
The elementary student, they do have early release this year, so.
calendar?
It's the secondary, the hybrid model.
So if you go back to school, so early release Mondays here, and then no early release. But once this is really important for parents to know. If we transition out of that hybrid model at the secondary level, we will go back to early release Mondays. So we're trying to get that message out, but early release is still applicable at the elementary level.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to give you just a quick update. There haven't really been many changes to the roadmap. Renee and I will be working to update just a few textual things, as well as adding that graphic for the hybrid schedule to the roadmap, and then we'll upload a new link to that document with those updates. But one of the things that we've been working on, which is included in your addendum, is a document called Planning for Positive or Probable COVID-19 Cases in a School Setting. This is a document that we took an example from Ada County or Canyon County and shared it with our local health department and said, hey, could we really like this idea? Could we come up with something similar so that it can really act as a guide for school officials, administrators, teachers to know what is going to happen if we have a confirmed case in our school setting. This is very flexible. It is going to be very dependent on case-by-case scenarios and working hand in hand with the guidance of SIF and Maggie Mann at the health department. So, but this just shows you that the process will be, if we have a confirmed case, that school will contact somebody at the district office. That liaison will then contact and coordinate our response with Southeast Idaho Public Health. And then what Southeast Idaho Public Health will look for from us is to gather that information from the school, such as how can we help them with that contact tracing. So not that our schools and our administrators will be responsible for the contact tracing, but there are some tools that we've put into place, like adding seating charts in every classroom that will really assist with that effort. So we'll supply seating charts or class schedules to the liaison with Southeast Idaho Public Health to help in that effort. And then, of course, Southeast Idaho Public Health will take that investigation internal and do the rest of that contact tracing. So they really bear the bulk of the responsibility for that, but we will assist them as needed. And then we just, this document goes into minimal risk exposure, moderate risk exposure, and high risk exposure. And it explains a couple of different scenarios. What's going to happen in that minimal risk exposure? What will the isolation requirement be if they have that minimal exposure? And then what is that joint communication? So, for example, in the minimal risk, let's say a learner or staff member has contact with an individual that was in contact with another individual who tested positive. Southeast Idaho Public Health sees that as very low risk. And so we would just ask that staff member or that learner to self-monitor for symptoms, continue activities as daily, but just monitor their symptoms. And if they develop something, then stay home. We won't do any communication in those instances, but we're just encouraging people to continue to monitor that daily report that Southeast Idaho Public Health. I'm going to add a link to that on our website on the homepage, so that's really accessible. It's a great resource to pay attention to. Moderate risk exposure, same, it goes into a little bit of depth, a little bit more direct exposure. Again, this is a case-by-case basis, but for example, if a learner or staff member has direct exposure, which means they were within 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes to a confirmed case while wearing a mask, that increases that exposure level just a little bit. And so SIF may recommend that they self-monitor for symptoms or that they quarantine, depending on that level of exposure. When that happens, we will work with SIF directly to identify any appropriate communications that need to go. And this could be at a school level or at a district level or even just at the classroom level. If we start to get some confirmed cases, we don't want to alarm everybody. And so it's really going to be a joint hand-in-hand effort with Maggie Mann and her team to identify when those communications are appropriate. The high risk exposure, this is where we're very blunt about this. If everybody's following the guidelines that we've laid out and the requirements that we've laid out, this scenario will be highly unlikely. If we're wearing our masks, if we're adhering to those social physical distancing guidelines, then we shouldn't really fall into this category. But that high risk of exposure could be a self-quarantine requirement for 14 days, or it could potentially mean that we have an extended school closure, or if it's one classroom, that classroom could potentially transition to a remote setting for 14 days. So these are just examples. We wanted people to understand what the process is going to be. And any questions on this? So Dr. Howell took a look at this yesterday. We reviewed this with Maggie Mann, and we're hoping to get this approved and out to our building departments and our building administrators and community at large. Any questions?
If a teacher was exposed and she has to self-quarantine for 14 days, how does that affect her sick leave and stuff like that?
So we have the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and I don't know if Brenda's here.
She'll
That covers 10 days. And so if I have a child and I'm a school district 25 staff member and I have to quarantine with my child, then I could potentially tap into that Families First Coronavirus. That gives me an additional 10 days of protection. So Ms. Miner has been out talking to every school this week. She has a full day slated tomorrow. She's been talking to food service, transportation, and really letting people know what this Families First Coronavirus Response Act is, how it can benefit, and when it's able to be, when they're eligible to tap into that.
She's back. You need her.
I think I covered it. Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. I think Chuck, Mr. Orr is going to join me up here and go over some additional.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is this document that's called 2020-2021 Instructional Models. And Sue and Lori worked initially in putting this document together, but we wanted to create something for staff that was kind of a easy go-to document that would provide a description for each of the various models, the modified, traditional, hybrid, and remote learning. And you can see those definitions there for yourself. I won't read down through those. But the other thing we wanted to do is then define what that means for teachers at each of those levels. So with the modified traditional, staff provides face-to-face instruction, obviously, and they're preparing in their daily instruction to move their students to a hybrid model or to that remote setting if and when we have to go there. But the first thing you'll see that we identified, and I'll come back to this document here in just a second, the teacher-learner expectations, but we wanted to put right there in front, we want our staff to be able to maintain a work-life balance and take care of themselves and set limits on their contract time and their professional time. We really don't want our teachers to have to be answering emails at 10 o'clock at night. It's important that they take care of themselves and set those boundaries. We want all teachers to develop an organized, easy to access and read classwork page within Google Classroom, and include all applicable links in Google Classroom. We want them to practice using Google Meet with their learners during the regular school day. And it's our expectation that everything be uploaded to Google Classroom. So, as teachers have students that are absent on and off, they can point them to their Google Classroom, and our learners will be able to get their assignments there. And then the other thing we wanted to communicate is that traditional grading practices will be maintained. You'll recall that was a little bit different last year in our emergency closure. With a hybrid setting, we want staff to provide instruction that supports the weekly learning intentions and success criteria, both face-to-face and remotely. On remote learning days, we want our teachers to consider a flipped classroom model. And on this page up here, there's a little tutorial that would help teachers do that. But in essence, what that means is when a learner's on a remote day, a teacher might provide an assignment to them to read a particular article or watch a particular video or some kind of combination of both of those things, so that when they return to the classroom the next day face-to-face, the teacher doesn't have to do that part of the lesson. The learners will have already had exposure to that, and then the next day would be more for discussion and application of those type of concepts. We wanted to define that on Wednesday, a half day at a minimum will be used for remote instruction, feedback and communication with learners, and then the remainder of the day is used for planning with an hour of PLC, professional development, or the non-directed contact time at the elementary level. We wanted to communicate that all instruction allows for ongoing, continual learning and feedback. That teachers regularly record themselves. We really want our teachers' faces in front of our students instead of a little avatar. We ended up purchasing Screencastify this year with some of our CARES funding, which allows a teacher to record themselves and then upload those videos within Google Classroom. It also allows all of our learners to be able to record themselves, so there can be kind of that two-way communication going back and forth between the teacher and their learners. It's important our teachers deliver that instruction in professional attire. Reminder that attendance will be taken every day for all of our learners, both remotely and face-to-face, and that traditional grading practices will be maintained. In the full remote learning, I'm sorry, this is, there we go, that'll be better. So our staff will work from their classroom during contract hours unless directed otherwise by you and the superintendent or Southeast Idaho Public Health. Their remote instruction will support the ongoing learning and meet weekly learning intentions and success criteria. It's important they develop a consistent daily and weekly schedule, provide their lessons via Google Meet or recorded and linked in Google Classroom using something like Screencastify. Communicate via email, Infinite Campus, Google Classroom, et cetera. You'll see the other applications up there that can be used for communication. That they differentiate using small group instruction in Google Meet, provide feedback to their students. There's that established daily office hours to allow for that two-way communication, and an expectation that we take attendance and that teachers maintain a contact log with their learners and families. Other expectations: teacher-led instruction for new continual learning via Google Meet or recorded and uploaded in Google Classroom. That interaction with their peers and the teacher is just very, very important to maintain that. Frequent formative feedback, differentiated instruction, office hours, traditional grading practices. So Lori and Sue initially developed this and then took it to their administrators for feedback and input. And then following that, on a couple different occasions, we've had a focus group of teachers in this summer. And a group of people who are just willing really to come at kind of a moment's notice so that we can run some of these by them, and we obtain their feedback and input as well. Following that, so we had on July 22nd, we had the first focus group of teachers come in, and we really did two things with them. One is there was a document that was put out by Achieve the Core that really talked about what instruction should look like this year, and that we can't go back and try to recreate the last trimester of the last school year, that it's really important to start where we need to start with grade level content, and then try to scaffold instruction to help catch kids up. So we wanted to present that document to them, and we worked with them on developing a process for getting that out district-wide. And so that worked through all of our building leadership teams, and then to the whole staff, and then that'll move into our first PLC, where teachers will talk about some of that priority instruction. And then it'll be addressed at our first instruction camp, so we get kind of a district perspective on what that priority instruction should look like. The second thing we had that group do is we wanted them to brainstorm what is it that teachers absolutely need to know, and what do their learners need to know right out of the gate with regard to instructional technology. And we had them brainstorm what it is they needed to know. Then Kathy and I took that list and kind of did away with all of the redundancies, and we ended up literally about a page and a half to 2 pages full of competencies that really were kind of overwhelming. So we brought our focus group back in again and said, okay, look at this list one more time and look at it through the lens of what are the must-dos that you see here, and what are the can-dos. Well, they didn't whittle it down much more from what it already was. Literally, we had maybe a half a dozen things that they said that they could move over, but these things really are pretty critical. And then as our instructional coaches began looking at this, they came back to Sue, Lori, Kathy, and I again late one afternoon and said, this really is too much. You know, we're gonna overwhelm people. And so that's where the vision of this came from. It's like, so what if we put it together in somewhat of a rubric? Here are the basic things the competencies that everybody, all of our teachers and our learners need to have moving forward. Here are the intermediate skills, and here are the advanced skills. And so the result of that is what you see here. And it's really pretty cool, because you can look at this and you can see that there are links here. So this will take teachers to like a set of directions, or sometimes a video that they can watch. I mentioned flipped classroom here. Let me just click on that as an example so you can see. It defines what a flipped classroom is, how to start your flipped classroom, and common activities include collaborative learning, case-based learning, and there's a link there that a teacher can go on and learn more about that. And so you can see, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but just kind of give you the idea, some very basic skills that teachers need with regard to Infinite Campus. Google Classroom is a big one. You saw on that other document that we want all of our teachers to utilize Google Classroom as their learning management system with their students, that it's organized, and we provide them with an example. You can see more intermediate skills here, so that, you know, as teachers and learners finish with this side, they can move over to, okay, here are some additional things that I can consider at more of an intermediate level. Chromebooks, Google Meet, communication, Screencastify I mentioned, how to publish in Google Classroom. So just a variety of tools that we wanted to be able to provide our teachers, and they can kind of self-assess where they're at with each one of these things. Go to some instruction, and the other thing that we did as a follow-up that then is I asked Dreama and Janelle to put together some Q&A sessions for instructional technology, and so they've scheduled those at, you can see, various times over the next 2 weeks. And they'll actually jump on a Google Meet with interested teachers if they need some of their questions answered with regard to creating a classroom, adding students, co-teachers, changing settings, understanding the Stream tab within Google Classroom, how to organize their classwork page. you can see the variety of topics here that really tie back to that document, the teacher and learner expectations. So we want to provide as much support for our staff as we can. We'll kind of see how these go over the next couple of weeks, and if we have to extend those over, weeks 3 and 4, we can easily do that. The other thing I think is we've been trying to offer the G Suite course. We offered one session in July and August, actually 2 sessions in July and August, and then 2 more sessions of that started this week as well. And we've tried to condense that course into just the very basics, and it's a 4-week kind of a down and dirty, here are the important things, many of the things that you saw on that, the competencies that you saw on that teacher-learner expectations page.
Is that what Trent Merrick?
Trent Merrick he started his second one this week. Dreama and Kathy Luris did one in July, August, and then Dreama and Janelle just started another one this week as well. So,
One of the things you mentioned in one of those pages that has been a kind of curiosity in my head, collaborative learning, that's probably not available in the classroom. Is it in person, or can they do that?
well, it can be both, actually. It's like, how do you foster that collaborative learning in a remote setting? So, and that is possible through Google Meet. The teacher can set up chat rooms that they can pop in and out of with small groups of kids. So that collaboration is possible remotely as well.
Well, I figured remote, but I didn't know about it in classroom.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Any other questions? You can see many of our staff members in it up here right now, so the people are looking at it. Okay.
I just wanted Mr. Orr to give you an overview. These are ideas that we float in cabinet a little bit, and then we start talking about them. How can we implement them? How can we meet and address the needs of our teachers and our learners? And it's really a creative process that I've come to love very much about my job. And this team that you see is just so passionate about what we're doing. And it's not emergency learning anymore. You can see it is very, very strategic. And so I wanted to have the board to sense and feel what we've been doing for the last probably 5 months. I think this culminates it really well. Today we have professional development going on. Chuck, will you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we contracted with Doug Fisher, who we became acquainted with really through a couple of ways, professional literature and then attending some of the visible learning conferences. And originally we had contracted with him to provide PLC Plus training this fall. Well, then COVID happened and remote learning happened, and that kind of changed the immediacy of what we needed to focus on. And he's actually, he trained our administrative staff on August 7th. It was an all-day virtual workshop. Today, he's training our entire staff via Zoom on remote learning. And really, not only is it best practices for remote learning, but it's things that are very applicable in face-to-face instruction as well. So that training is going on. We've heard a little bit of feedback already via our principals, and I've had some emails from staff members during the training this morning about, this is really good. Can we get a copy of his slide deck? And so I think it's very timely, and I think it's what's needed right now. So just another example of how we're trying to provide support to our staff with professional development as we get this school year underway. Any other questions? Okay. Shall I just roll ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, so, well, let's see, am I first? Yep, SAT update. So just for your information, You may have heard that the State Board of Education waived the college entrance exam admissions requirement for the class of 2021. So colleges may choose to not require a college entrance score for impacted students. These students will still be required to meet other college entrance requirements that are set forth by the state board and the universities. That being said, the state board has not waived the college entrance exam graduation requirement. So currently in state board rule, students are required to take a college entrance exam in order to graduate. That piece of it they have not waived yet. It's possible that this rule may still be waived through the rulemaking process in October or November, but we'll likely not have an answer from the State Board of Education prior to the SAT school day, which is currently scheduled for seniors to take on October 14th. The state also pays for sophomores to take the PSAT on the same day, that same date. On October 14th, our ninth grade students will attend school virtually on that day so that it frees up other staff members to help with the proctoring of the SAT on the 14th. And then the class of 22, this year's juniors, they're currently scheduled to take the SAT on April 13th with a makeup day scheduled for April 27th. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see what comes our way at that time. But I just wanted to draw that distinction between the state board waiving the college admissions requirement for a college entrance exam versus the graduation requirement, which may still get waived, but likely not in time for October 14th. Any questions about that? Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Is this one on?
Is that one on?
Oh, yes. Okay. So the very first thing is the amended school district calendar. And so you'll note in your packet there are two, the calendar for the approved calendars for the 2020-2021 school year with one minor change, which was alluded to earlier. At the very bottom, it states that all Mondays are 1 hour early release, with the exception of schools on the hybrid instruction model. So that should address that our elementary schools at this point are on the 1 hour early release. It's in there's a star there, and both of them, they're on the bottom of the one that is the ADA accessible, and then it's over to the right at the bottom on the one that is the actual calendar. So that will be on, you'll be asked to adopt the amended calendar under action items there. Next is the Head Start program update, and the enrollment, currently they have 128 children enrolled. The full day enrollment is full at 40. Remember, they're going at half of their the enrollment this year. The part day has 88 children enrolled. The maximum is 107. They're continuing to take applications, but they found that families are hesitant to send their children to preschool with COVID-19 concerns. 7 children are on a wait list for when the program can resume with normal operations. The first day of school for the full-day program is the 24th of August, so the same as the rest of the school district, and the 31st for the part-day program. The non-federal share match, 100% of the non-federal required match has been waived for this program year. In the personnel, they have 7 staff positions that are open. This is that high number is due in part to the fact that they just posted 4 new positions, which are bus monitors. So to place someone on the bus to monitor students as they get on the bus. So that did increase, and the other are teacher aide positions. For the funding, the program received their 2020-2021 COLA and Quality Improvement Notice of Award. The program is at $2,631,485. For the facilities, the triple-wide modular that was destroyed in the fire was removed last week. Maintenance is shoring up the decking to the remaining 2 modular classrooms that are there. The Phase 1 environmental assessment has been completed that we needed to in order to move forward with that application for the facility. And we're finalizing that, and it should be ready to go at some time and be coming to you and to the Policy Council for review and approval. Lots of steps to that one, but we should be nearing that so that we can be moving ahead there.
Okay.
Questions on Head Start? Okay, next in there you will see the elementary, the current enrollment numbers for the elementary schools. This has been every year, it's always a work in progress, and this year especially so. So just a few highlights there. We overloaded this year at Idaho and Gate City. You will also know that notice that we overloaded at Tindoy. The Tindoy overload was due to the fact that we decreased the number of teachers at Tindoy in kindergarten, first grade, and fourth grade to 1. Well, fifth grade is also at 1. We had decreased it earlier. And that was, they will be at kindergarten, first grade, and then fourth grade. They are moving to be some of our online teachers. So that's where the overloads are. Over there in the yellow on this side, you will see that we have 448 students enrolled in our elementary online program. We have 17 teachers assigned to the online program, 3 at every grade level except for third grade, and we have 2 teachers at third grade. We based it on, we watched the numbers of online enrollments. It closed on August 4th. We saw how many teachers we would need at that point in order to accommodate those that had registered by that deadline on August 4th, and then we determined the number of teachers from there. The next step is to look in the buildings and to say, well, where do we see some decreases where it isn't like it comes with extra, that we have to, these students we're students in our typical schools, and so we had to find out where can we pull, and shift teachers in order to accommodate. And across the board, we were able to make that and keep teachers in their same grade level, reducing the classes at a school, such as Tindoy, by 1 teacher and moving that teacher over to the online program. So we're getting ready to go. The teachers now have their classes that they've been assigned to. We met with them last week. We'll be meeting with them every Wednesday as a group. They are a phenomenal group. I just have to tell you, they came into this meeting and there were 17 teachers who were asked to, okay, can you teach online? Something new. This is a big challenge for them. And they sat in this room and you could feel that, okay, we can do this, that kind of an attitude. We had our instructional consultants here. So, Dreama and Janelle and our literacy and our math, Cindy White, Kimberly Thompson, they were here. Chuck was here. Kathy was here. Kathy Luris was here. And I know that they could feel the support that they were going to have. And we're going to make this work, and it's going to be good. They are dedicated. They'll learn a lot. There's a lot of support out there for them. So we know that we can make this work and have our online program, which is new, really new for us, a new learning, but we really can do it. And we've got a strong team in order to support everyone. So we're meeting again tomorrow. They have a million questions, which we have some of the answers. We truly are working on this and coming up with a lot of answers as we move along, but, that's kind of where we are. We did overall end up with, you'll see there, 5,093, our numbers last year. Those are for the total students that are either in the buildings or in online, and our last year number was 5,472. So we do know that we have students out there that we've been answering the phone nonstop here all summer. It seems like we have students that for lots of different reasons, some homeschool, some have gone to other online charters, and for a variety of reasons they've made some other decisions. I think once things settle down, we know we have a strong program in our schools, and so I can see them coming back. And I would imagine that as we move closer to the next Monday, these numbers will be changing, and we'll be seeing more students showing up at our doors as they make those decisions. Some of parents have waited out to try to make a decision. So, okay, are there any questions, any details you want me to highlight?
Do you think the whole year will go this way?
Oh, I wish I had a crystal ball.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's like, I used to be able to make some predictions and make them pretty well, and I don't seem to be able to do that very well anymore. We're prepared if we do, you know. I don't know. There's just a lot of ifs. Yeah. If you can tell me if you figure that one out, then let me know. All right, any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Lori.
Good morning.
Morning.
Secondary enrollment numbers. We are fully staffed in secondary. Yay! I think we hired our last one at the beginning of this week or at the end of last week. It all kind of blurs together now. As far as enrollment, right now, middle school is exactly 1 student less than we had last year. And high school is up by 14. So we are pretty much dead even from where we started. We had a little bit of rearranging. Franklin lost a few students. When we did our boundaries, that was the last year to move, and so Franklin's lost about 50 kids, and Irving's gained about 50 kids. Pocatello High School has gone up about 92, and part of that is because New Horizons hasn't fully. The kids that get pulled from our high schools haven't been pulled all the way. So right now, Century's up 21, Highland's up 65, and Pokey's up 92. But New Horizons usually pulls about 200 of those kids eventually. So that'll even out again. But that's where secondary's at right now. We have our online program. It has about exactly 10% of our middle school, high school kids that are planning on going to online at the moment. They are again required to stay there for the full trimester, and then they can choose at the end of the trimester whether they want to stay online or come back to regular school. We have the classes are ready, and the high schools and middle schools are currently putting kids into their first class, and the families will be getting an email tomorrow sometime to instruct them how to get onto Apex, and there's a video that shows them what it looks like, and then all the directions on how to get on that program. So those classes will be ready for them to start on Monday, first thing. Questions? Okay.
Looks like the parents want the secondary kids to go back, right? We don't blame them. Okay, first item up here is the prohibition of sexual harassment for a second reading. Do we have any questions on that policy update that came down from the federal government? The new definition, the new procedures, and so forth.
I read it.
Yeah, I read it.
I read it too, but I.
Under question.
I mean, we do a really good
The
job.
boss is gone.
I won't say that out loud. Okay. Camp request, we have one. We have a volleyball camp that they offer middle school kids to get ready for their tryouts on Monday. So they offer opportunity to get ready for that. So they want to do that this weekend, if you guys approve of that. And then our fall athletics schedule and annual travel requests. The fall schedule, I hope you understand, is pretty fluid and flexible. We've already had to, and it's updated on your calendar right now, replace a Boise game this Friday with Highland with a Thunder Ridge game because Boise's not quite ready. They're having a late start. But as we meet with the ADs every Monday at 1 o'clock throughout the area, we help each other out and making sure that when we lose a game and so forth, we're stepping up and helping each other fulfill that need to help keep those kids moving. So far we're doing really well. We had to expand our schedule a little bit into the outside area. If you notice, I think Pocatello High School has a football game in Jackson Hole. Highland has one in Logan, just because we are in our 5th district now conference, so we're looking for games. But right now, a pretty full schedule, but very flexible. Any questions on any of the schedules? Okay, I think that's it for me.
Will you cover the
New
New Horizon calendar?
Horizon what?
Calendar?
Okay.
I do not have it on there, but I can pull it up. Where's it at? Do I need to talk about my athletic director? Student teacher?
No, they already did that one.
Okay.
So we just had this one here, the New Horizon calendar. It's
Okay.
basically
Oh,
our
same thing.
calendar, but they just do their block schedule,
Correct.
so we just need to work out that as well.
So the New Horizon calendar is similar to last year where we do a 6-week block. For them, they get the 3 credits, so it allows them to get 6 credits in a trimester rather than the 5. And also the Mondays, 1 hour early release, if we're in the hybrid instruction model, we will not have that. We will be following the hybrid model for secondary schools. Any questions on the calendar? Okay.
No. Already down to Park.
Good morning.
Morning.
I was trying to figure out how you're all doing this morning, but you had that same look on your face and I couldn't really tell.
Rare.
All right, a little humor to start off. The Idaho General Fund Revenue Report at the state level started off with a good month, $32 million ahead of schedule, which is about 8.4% for that particular month. I would say that with some cautious optimism that things may continue that way. If you read through the report, I think that they are still concerned about where the next 6 months will go, so to speak. So I don't know that there's really not much more to say about that other than I think we need to watch that very cautiously, be very conservative in where we go with that, and hopefully things will continue to trend up. But housing seems to still be going fairly strong, but they're concerned about the unemployment and just how businesses will rebound over the coming months through this COVID crisis. So we will keep a watch on that. Our food service program came to an end for the summer, and it's really interesting to kind of look at the numbers, so to speak, on this. We ended up serving 133,000 meals, really double that if you consider breakfast and lunch. That is nearly beats the record total that we had back in 2010 when we served 137,000 meals during that year. So that was the highest summer feeding count that we had in 2010, and we nearly broke that this year, but not quite. In fact, you might say that we almost doubled that if we consider both breakfast and lunch, but nonetheless, we had very good participation this summer in our summer feeding program. So we do not have the free and reduced numbers to report to you this time, but we'll bring that the next month as we get into school and get those numbers a little bit more confirmed there. I'm going to go to item E, if that's okay with you, and just talk about the auction results first. We held our annual auction on July 11th, and we had roughly $5,072 net income from those auction proceeds. That's fairly typical with what we've seen in the past. It's not really low, not really high, so I would say just kind of a normal year for our auction proceeds. We do have a physical auction at prime time, and then we also try to sell things online as well. So that's something new over the last 3 or 4 years that we've been doing. An update on summer projects. I'm always happy to see this time of year come along and we've got our projects done for the summer. It was helpful to have a few extra weeks beginning at the start of the summer, I guess, into the school year that we typically wouldn't have. But just to give you an update, our HVAC, which was done at Century High School, that was half of the school. That's being completed. Those are heat pump units there. And also complete HVAC renovation at Ida Howe Elementary School. So those are both in there and complete at this point in time. We had kind of an anticipated paving project back here in the bus garage area, our loading dock for transportation and for warehouse and food service. Parking lot started coming up, so that has been completed and worked out very, very well. We just finished up our last bit of carpeting in Tyhee Elementary School. We had 7 classrooms that were remaining. We got those done, I think just today is Tuesday. It must have been last week on Friday. We just finished those up. So that has been done, and all the tile that we had left to do at Franklin as part of Phase 2 has been completed as well. We also put a new outdoor basketball court at Franklin Middle School. They were the only ones that really didn't have one that could be utilized. They had a small one, but it was in an area where it couldn't be supervised, so that's been completed. The landscaping redone there. And let's see. Our roofing project, that's the one that is still hanging out at Syringa Elementary and Hawthorne Middle School. We just had a heck of a time. We didn't get any bids, and then we got a contractor to do it, and then it's been the issue of getting materials in. So the materials are in. They'll start at Syringa. They'll be able to do that while school is in session since they're working on the roof, and same with middle school, and it should be very minimal disruption. Maybe a little bit of noise here and there as they pound in a nail or do something of that nature, but we should get that done. Normally, we would delay a project like that, but we've actually delayed that 2 years because we haven't had anybody been able to bid on it and do the work. So we want to get it done so that we don't have any damage in our schools. The new bleachers are in at Century High School, and they set the press box, I think, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. And so they're just finishing up the final inspections and a few things with that, and that should be done, as well as Highland High School gym floor. They have refinished the gym behind the bleachers now. The bleachers are back in place, and so they'll be working on the main gym, painting that up, and then putting the finishing touches on that. I would imagine we'll probably be a week and a half to still 2 weeks out, and Highland knows about it, and they've made other arrangements to use some other gyms to make sure that they can have access to their needs in their school level there. The modular that caught fire back in December last year is finally gone. So that has been removed, cleaned up very nicely. There's just some patching of sod that we need to do where we had the heavy equipment in there, and so they'll be doing that this week. Head Start, I think, starts a week later, don't they, than normal school, so we should be in good shape there. And then lastly, just wanted to mention Pocatello High School. That is still moving forward very well. They had, in fact, I was looking on the cameras today, they had probably 10, 15 people on site. They're starting to put up the concrete masonry walls on the footings. The elevator shaft is being poured and they're doing the second pour on that. So they're almost done with all the main foundation footings, and then they'll start putting up the perimeter wall around there. We should have steel on site in September, around the first part of September, and so we'll start seeing things move up rather than just the part that you've seen in the ground that isn't very visible. So still going well, and we're hopeful that they're probably actually a few weeks behind schedule, but we might be able to pick up some slack as things start moving around and as far as the building actually being erected. So any questions or? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Pearl.
Good morning. Oh, that's kind of loud.
Give that one to me.
Yeah, we should. Just 3 sections on my part of the agenda this morning, and just to give you a little update on our technology sort of issues. IC, of course, is always one of our. It's a 4-letter word. You know, we've said that more than once. Our regular school submission has been done, and we had to do some adjustments for some graduation codes that were entered incorrectly at one of the schools, and so that's been updated and taken care of. We had found out because some of the students weren't able to get some of the state money that was given to graduates, and so that's how we found out that it was entered incorrectly. And we are currently entering the data for the summer school, so that should hopefully be done this week. So things are going well there. Technology, they are staying busy. Right now, the big issue with them is trying to get Chromebooks in. I think everybody's in the same boat. They're trying to buy Chromebooks for remote learning, and we ordered Chromebooks several months ago, and we have now been pushed back to probably the late part of November, first part of December, before we were able to get some of those books or those computers. So we're scrambling to try to find a few here and a few there just to make sure we have extras kicking around. So if something happens to go south on us, we can have at least a few books.
But all our students have been issued?
Yes, in the secondary school. So that we're trying to make sure that we're covered in the elementaries right now. And so they've been to Costco, they've been to Best Buy, they even bought some from Tech Hut. And so I know they had a source of some that were twice the money, the regular Chromebooks that we have. So they even ordered some from there just to make sure we had some extras. So it's going to cut into their budget.
There were some that didn't get turned back in. Did we recover on that at all?
You know what? I don't know the number, but it was very few. We thought we were going to have a larger number of computers that did not get returned. It seemed to me like it was like in the 100, 150 computer range, and they were working on getting them, but sometimes people move and just take them with them. And so, but overall, they were fairly happy with how things turned out with the returns. They did have some, as you might be aware, that were in the schedule to be retired this year. They were no longer going to work, and so that's what they're trying to deal with as well. As we begin next week, we've had the conversation about how do we get the kids through the lunch line without having to touch a whole lot of things. And so they're back in technology right now, creating cards that they can use instead of using the keypad. We have enough cards printed that we have, I think, 7 schools taken care of. Kevin was very positive last night on the progress. Come in this morning and said that printer that they'd bought had pooped out. So they are having a couple of new printers overnighted us tonight, and we'll begin that process again tomorrow. If they don't get here, then we will go to Plan B, which is to print it on cardstock and then distribute those and do the PVC cards later. So we have a plan. It's just we keep getting things thrown at us that make it.
These kids, they have to have this card with them at all times?
No, just during the lunch line. So it's going to just have their lunch card number on it, and their name. And they just scan it with a barcode and move on, rather than using the keypad. So that's what they're using instead of having all the little fingers on the keypad where they have to keep cleaning.
Yeah.
At the secondary schools, they'll probably hold on to them, but at the elementary, I think the teacher will collect them at the end of the lunch period and then return them,
Yeah,
reissue the
that's
next
great.
day, that sort of thing.
Okay, all right.
Keep them in a basket, put them on a lanyard, whatever it might be, just for the lunch period.
Okay.
And of course, with online learning, they've talked a little bit about that today. And we're going to ramp up our help desk to try to keep as many people available as possible on the help desk over the next several weeks. And so that's in the works.
That really helped last March.
It really did. We are anticipating that the need will be much less than it was in April.
Uh-huh.
So right now we're going to do from 7 to 5 and then see what kind of calls come in. We can monitor that after 5 or before 7, and so we'll adjust that as needed.
Mm-hmm.
But we're hoping that the teachers, we have teachers committees to do online learning will help with that as well. Next section on my agenda, part of the agenda, is wellness dashboard. You can see that July was a typical month where people do procedures and that sort of thing during the summer, maybe a little more so. We had $1 million in medical care costs, which is 139% of our premium billed for the month. We anticipated that. Whether it was to that extent, I couldn't tell you if that's a little over the top or not. We do have some very large claims out there right now, and $300,000, $400,000 plus. And so they will ultimately not count against us when you look at the whole renewal thing. But we do have some very large claims out there right now. And It happens, it happens. But we did anticipate this, and so that's not a big surprise, but the 136% was maybe a little on the outside. 125 is what I was anticipating. And the last thing on my section of the agenda is our annual renewal of our pay manual. And we did a fairly number of changes this time around. And you have the red line version in your document. I just want to go through and just briefly say why the changes are there. Personal leave, there was some personal leave changes in there that just matched the current practice. We cleaned up some language to dealing with the Affordable Care Act. There was a section there about contract payoffs. We just condensed it and moved it to a different section and made it easier to read. Premium differential. Next year we are going to increase that. That's for those people who do not participate in our wellness program. The premium differential is currently $35, so they pay $35 towards their own premium every month. Our insurance committee, when we met in the spring, said maybe let's incentivize them a little more because they're not participating, so they're going to go to $65. That'll be coming this next year, so we just made a notation in the pay manual for that.
$65 a month?
$65 a month.
I would think that would be.
Yeah, you might think twice about maybe not reporting something. Most of the time you do it anyway, but you just don't report it.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Not that difficult, is it?
No, it's not. We have 5 components, and they're all free if you do it through the wellness program or your Delta Dental program. So anyway, that is in there now. So we will, not this current year, but the next year we'll make that change. We just corrected some supplemental tax rates, retirement sick leave. We just did some clarification on retirement sick leave and on when benefits terminated after an employee gets their last paycheck or quits. In the past, we've always thought of emergency closures as being snow days. And it's come to the realization, it's different now. And from other reasons. So we made the emergency closure a little more generic rather than just referring to snow days. There's a section there we reworked about workers' comp and payroll coordination and make that a little more clear. Emergency procedures on emergency closure days, not snow days, but emergency closure days. And the sick leave bank sections in the very back are coordinated with the negotiated agreement. So those are basically the changes. And we will ask you to approve that this morning, and we'll, once approved, we'll put it on the website and move on. So that concludes my section of the agenda, unless you have questions or comments or clarifications.
No?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Brenda Monick, what do you have for us?
I have some good news, so that's always nice to hear, right? We are completely staffed, so our hiring update is good news for the fact that we had 5 people who chose a leave of absence, for personal or reasons or whatever that may be. And so I was a little nervous about if we were going to be able to fill those positions with qualified candidates, and we hired the last one yesterday, and it was a fully certified, ready-to-go art teacher at Highland High School. So we're completely staffed, so that feels good. What's happening right now that we're working with is a lot of the paraprofessionals. What we find is if those openings were, especially this past year, if those positions became available in May, a lot of principals don't hire in May because they end up rehiring in August. So some of those positions are just now being filled for paraprofessional jobs that were vacated even back as far as May. So the next piece that I have is just the fact that it seems like May 19th was forever ago, but that's when the Board of Trustees, you guys were able to authorize the superintendent to do the hiring through the summer months, ending August 31st, 2020, at which time the hiring will revert back to you. And again, like I say, that's been one of the a real blessing. And so thank you for that opportunity, because we were able to have the hiring go relatively smoothly.
How did he do?
Oh, he did pretty well, yeah. I should say he did really well. We have everyone hired, right? Mm. And then my last piece today is just the policy 7202, the teacher supervision and evaluation of certificated and professional staff, for second reading. The change to this policy, the main piece of this is that incorporating that distinguished category into the evaluation process. And so the board, you will be asked to hear the policy on second reading for adoption under action items. Just a little bit more information on that piece, just so you know what that will look like for our staff and our administrators. We will be meeting as elementary and secondary. I will be meeting with those administrators to really talk about what that distinguished look like, so that it'll look very comparable in all of our buildings. We think that that's a really critical component. And then to also get feedback from the Mary Ann McGrory from the PEA as well, and making sure that that distinguished category is very clear to teachers and what those expectations are in that rubric for administrators and teachers. And that, Jim, I apologize that I was gone there for a minute. I was called out by a principal. Did Courtney answer your question regarding the matter with the teacher? Okay. Thank you.
Brenda, just on that distinguished category,
Yes.
our conversations in the past have been kind of, you don't live there, you visit there. Is that still kind of where it's at, or?
Well, the main reason that that distinguished has come into play now is falls along with the new category, the advanced professional rung, that comes into play, where they have to have a distinguished marking in either domain 2 or domain 3 from the Danielson framework. And so that's why it's going to be really critical that we talk to people and making sure that that looks the same. So they just have to have that distinguished marking to, as one of the stipulations to qualify for that in one of those categories. But I totally understand what you mean. That is kind of a hard thing, because we do talk about that you visit there, but now all of a sudden you need to be distinguished in one of those domains for that next category. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Superintendent.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start here with the board calendar, and as you can see, and as you already know, staff returned yesterday and well underway in the buildings this week to prepare for our learners' return next week. And then, of course, we have our board meeting today. Tomorrow, reinstatement hearings at beginning at 1 o'clock, and it looks like we're scheduled till 4. And I think we'll probably go about that long. Yeah. Okay. And first day of school next Monday for our learners. In the secondary, it'll be the A day, and then first day will be B learners at the secondary on Tuesday. And then scheduled now is September 1st for a due process hearing in the boardroom. That's all day, but we're planning for all day. See how that goes. Just we'll be a little flexible there. And then Labor Day shows up a little bit later, it seems like to me, in September than normal. And then Judge Murray, I don't know if you all are attending that meeting virtually or if they're being held at all.
It hadn't been held over the summer.
Okay.
So this is the first one coming up.
Don't know.
Don't know yet. I haven't received word.
Have you heard anything?
I haven't, yeah.
Okay.
On September 8th, rather than have you go out to schools straight away, as we, of course, work through that return to school, Mr. Orr suggested that we'll just notice for the entire board to be there as a group for a gathering with no action, of course. And he will tour you through the Gateway building and then also talk to you a little bit about curriculum units and standards. So we thought that'd be a good way to start until we work our way through a month or so of return to school.
I was thinking, since you've said no one extra to be in the schools, that we might be in that category.
A little bit, but we're going to get you in there for sure. And then we're tentatively planning for a work session that afternoon too, and then into back to local issues on September 11th. As Mr. Manson pointed out, we've had the opportunity to present now with that group, I think twice in the last 4 months or so.
Yeah.
So as far as what we were doing in the springtime with teaching and learning, and then our reopen, and so it's always nice to share what we're doing and to kind of brag on the district a little bit, I think. And then that takes us out to the 15th with regular board meeting, and then I'll just let you pick it up from there, but that gets us out a month.
I think with the Gateway tour, we were gonna try and do the work session at Gateway, just following that.
Oh, okay.
So we would have the tour, a little break for lunch, and then get into work session and work with technology to get us up and running with the work session at Gateway.
Okay.
Oh, and I noted on the 24th, curriculum, it's on Thursday, and Mr. Mattson had filled in for me because I can't do Thursday.
Okay, I just didn't
Can
think
you
of
still
that.
do that day?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
I just
Oh, I will miss
get
it, but
Okay, my calendar, please.
Yes.
Okay, next up for, in my report, are the COVID-19 policy changes. And as we talked about this over the last couple months and how we might incorporate those, Ms. Johnson's been working with ISBA and trying to, again, determine, do we incorporate them right into a policy, or do we do kind of a set-aside standalone document? And that's what we've opted for. And so, as you can see, these would take effect upon your approval or authorization. And so a number of them would, they all stem, of course, around COVID. And so I'll just pick it up here, personal protective equipment and the face coverings. The board mandated that face coverings would be part of our attire for a while. And so we wanted to incorporate that. We talked about where it would fit best. And so you can see that we'll pull it back in to student discipline if we have any concerns, or into employee standards of conduct for our staff. And so we'll work it through those two avenues if necessary. 3306, and Mrs. Gephardt mentioned this earlier, school visitors and sex offender limitations. And so we would try to limit the number of folks going in and out of the building, but we know how important that is to the board as well. So we can arrange in advance the visitation, and then you'd have to have the appropriate signage and so forth. But we wouldn't discourage it, but we're not encouraging it either. An addition or temporary change to 5202 in regard to community and employee use of school buildings. You can see how that would follow the stages of any changes to our COVID related quarantines and limitations that way. 5304 school food service program. We've made some changes there to accommodate our hybrid and remote learning. Emergency preparedness, we're fortunate that we're able to do the drills a little bit differently this year. So a fire drill, the staff will take, I don't recall, Ms. Wilkes talked about this a little bit, but fire drills, essentially a teacher will take their class out once a month. So rather than have the alarm and the entire school go, it'll be on a classroom basis. And then we will adjust as well in the other evacuation drills by suspending them until further notice. Health exam, daily health screenings, we encourage that to happen in the home, and then the isolation that would come with that if necessary. Fringe benefits, you can see under this section 7501 and 7605 and 7505. This relates to what Mrs. Miner and Mrs. Fisher talked to you about a little bit earlier, and this is in regard to the Family First Coronavirus Act. So this is temporary. Mrs. Miner has not received any indication that it's been extended beyond the end of December yet. However, things are constantly changing and in flux with the election and kind of what we need and what we want and who gets what for which kind of trade. So we'll continue to monitor that and be sure to update our staff if, or when necessary. And then the attendance, that certainly comes into play when we know we have to be more flexible with our staff and with our learners, because we're encouraging people to stay home when they don't feel well. The Google Classroom, as Mr. Orr talked to you about earlier today, will allow for our teachers to maintain all of their lessons and the daily work and the expectations, the learning intention success criteria. All that will be posted daily. So when a student isn't feeling well, they'll be able to access it remotely. And so the makeup privilege is there, one day for every day you're out kind of thing. Dress code, hopefully we don't have too many bedhead days. Maybe that's a special exception, but otherwise expected to be in professional attire. And then the student use of district-owned equipment, you can see there that we're issuing one-to-one devices, and that if there's damage to the device, that there will be some restitution necessary. And then bus transportation, that our drivers will be wearing masks and that sanitizer is provided and encouraged upon entering. And so I think that covers these temporary policy changes related to COVID. Next up is C, and this is just asking the board's permission for weapons at schools. The exception is, would be for starting pistols at track meets and any theater productions that and Veterans Day type assemblies that would include weapons. Those would be the 3 exceptions that the board could grant today. And then those would be for the entire school year. And I think that's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for public comment, written comment pertinent to agenda items, and I haven't received any, so we will move on to the action items. First item of business is to adopt the amended 2020-21 school district calendar. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board adopt the amended 2020-21 school district calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing all in the positive, that motion is passed. The next item of business is to adopt the 2020-21 New Horizons Center calendar. Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the 2020-21 New Horizons Center calendar.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing that motion has passed. The next item of business is to hear on second reading for adoption the following policies. Policy 7405/8305, prohibition of sexual harassment, and policy 7202, teacher supervision and evaluation of certificated and professional staff. Is there a motion?
I move the board here on the second reading of the proposals read.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing all in the positive, that motion is passed. The next item is to approve the camp request.
I move that we approve the camp request.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion has passed, and the next item is to approve the fall athletic schedules and annual travel for out-of-state and CTE competitions and college university tours. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board approve the fall athletic schedules inclusive of annual travel for state and CTE competitions and college university tours as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing all in the positive, that motion is passed. Next item is to adopt the pay manual revisions for 2020-21 school year.
I move that the board adopt the manual revisions for 2021 school year presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all, that motion is passed. The next item is to adopt the COVID-19 policy changes. Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the Aren't they temporary policy changes
Yearly, yeah.
or?
Yeah.
It will just be in place until further board action, so you would just
Yeah.
need to take action to.
To drop
remove
it.
the policy changes.
So moved.
Okay, is there a motion? Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
That motion is passed. The final item is business is to grant permission to allow weapons replicas on school property for Veterans Day activities, starter guns for track meets, props for drama presentations, and mountain man assemblies. Is there a motion?
Move that we grant permission to allow weapons replicas on school property, Veterans Day, starter guns for track meets, props for drama, and mountain man assemblies.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion is passed, and that concludes this hearing, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is
I
there-
move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This motion is passed, and we are adjourned.